Is a controversial topic. I'm sure, will not sow any discontent among anyone. I tend to be quite critical of my generation, Generation Z. I even hate the fact that I'm associated with these people. If I'm being frank, I don't think I know of. Okay, I probably shouldn't come off swinging, should I? Like, I'm gonna entitle this video like the wasted youth of Gen Z or something like that. Basically, I come to the understanding that being young is so precious that, oh my goodness, having a healthy body, even having energy, which I don't always have a lot of energy. I can't. I don't like thinking about where I might be like 50 years from now. Okay, all this stuff is so precious. You're only young once. And this generation completely wastes and squanders youth. Um, and I honestly don't think there's a way I go about making this video without being extremely critical. But social media is a huge part of it. It's the behaviors even that are encouraged in these little social bubbles among other people. It's a disinterest in literature, in the nicer things in life, the things that give life complexity, that make relations with other human beings rewarding and deep. Um, and so many people will like speak towards, they'll pay lip service to this idea of existence as a Gen Z person, as being anxiety inducing. They won't do much introspection, frankly, and they will never really come to a sufficient understanding as to the nature of their problem. They don't comment on. They typically it's like whining and never changing your behaviors, never changing anything about you. Whine, 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 whine. That tends to be the bulk of this critique of one's era. Okay, one's generation, I guess. It's like other people did this to me. Oh, goodness gracious. As though the members of this community, this generation, haven't been encouraging wastefulness in how one behaves, and vulgarity in one's beliefs, and in how one lives. Um, if there's impatience even for complexity, if this is a generation where people do not know how to deal with a complicated thought, do not know how to read a book from cover to cover, do not have the patience for nuance, who think any word with more than two syllables is like, you know, witnessing a word like that spoken is like witnessing a UFO crash into a fucking skyscraper. If you're like this, um, I think you're going to be a problem for the world and for world history, frankly. I honestly am of the conclusion that this generation is so decadent um, that it's going to destroy the United States government. And it's like we might as well, what is it? I don't know, we'll watch, but okay, it's 1 a.m. Whoops, all right, I'm up at 1 a.m. July 3rd, 2026. All right. Um, the United States is going to collapse because of these people. It just is. It's not going to work. And if it doesn't collapse, it will only come through considering the possibility that it will collapse and reacting appropriately. But I mean, this generation is notorious for being vapid and for saying stupid shit and for being really, really, unproductive and lazy in what it even produces, like the art it produces. There's some people who are quite, there's some exceptions, but this is like a remix culture of just appropriating things other people did, not really understanding those things, and then just, sort of schizophrenically utilizing it in a way that is not mindful of the history of culture in any sense. Which means even the way in which Gen Z expresses itself reveals so much ignorance about the world. About like if you want to say something productive, if that even is just basically like basic communication or artistic communication, Even just, say you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start a company, or you just want to do something of value, anything of value. Okay. Typically, you have to be a little mindful of like what is already out there, what has already been done, what conversations have already happened and are kind of in their late stage today or something. What are the legacies around you that once understood you can contribute to? That doesn't really happen, frankly, among Gen Z. It happens at a pretty superficial level, where maybe you'll watch a 2-minute video that tells you the history about something, and then all of a sudden you know how to talk about it. Okay, that's a little bit much. I think people will disagree with the tone that I've taken. I honestly, um, I don't care. I don't believe you, and I am kind of freaked out when I am tasked with talking to somebody from Gen Z because they don't seem civilized. They really don't. And there's also like a sick, twisted. So they've been a guinea pig generation. I'm saying they because I'm trying to draw distance between myself. I think it's important to have snobbery in this era to save yourself and your soul. So allow me to be snobbish. They so they were a guinea pig generation for social media and all this stuff. Okay, um, which means they might be privately holding crazy views that are impossible to argue with, impossible to reason with. And there's also like there's a lot of ways in which that goes wrong. It can go wrong in a political direction. It can go wrong in like an identity politics direction. It also goes wrong in a gendered direction. There's like a Cold War among the sexes in this generation that's super, super evil. It's really screwed up. What's alarming is I don't see many people um, who, who demonstrate much of an appetite for exiting this weird, fucked up war. Um, you know, Especially what I said about the importance of youth. A huge part of that is relations with the opposite sex. That's extremely important. The fact that it's treated in such a vapid and sick manner among the majority of people is it's like we're wasting our lives. We really are. And we're wasting our capacity to feel things and to enjoy life as a human being. And if there's so much anxiety surrounding, you know, capitalism, corporations taking things from us and us being deprived of stuff or whatever, it's alarming to me, and it's also totally inexcusable that supposedly, anybody who's disadvantaged, but a generation that views itself as, scorned in some way, would make it so that it's like that the things that we hold, the property that we hold, which is like our personality, our social capacities, our brains, that we wouldn't even expend that in such a way that's generous to people who are in a similar predicament. It's like, here's a bit of an out there comparison. It's really not out there, but if you're a Gen Z person listening to this, you're not used to people referencing history, are you? So that's mean, but fuck you. In the French Revolution, right, there was like, following that, there was the development of an egalitarian cafe culture. In a way, it was creating a culture where the fruits of life were rendered more accessible for every person. If the UK, which was a more hierarchical culture, had its private clubs, which by nature are exclusive, the Frenchmen had the cafe, where everybody showed up and they talk about literature, they talk about a play, they talk about life, they would, hook up, enjoy things together and things of that nature. And there wouldn't be, this desire to um, make social interaction as unintuitive as possible. And there wasn't any encouraged frigidity among people. It was like, we are of the people. Let's kind of pool our resources together and live in such a manner that would even make, a king envious or something. This is a poetic way of putting it. I don't find anybody, for all this complaining about exclusion and hierarchy, I don't find many people who are trying to do the opposite or something. It was like in the 60s, there actually was a real attempt to do that. However, we want to criticize the hippies. People can do that. it was like they were really about it. You know, they really wanted to destroy social barriers. If you were even a musician, it was taboo to charge anybody money for your performance. Who today, who rises up in stardom and whatnot, is that real? You understand that authentic? We don't believe you don't believe in this stuff. You don't believe in equality. You don't believe in you know, a collapsing of all boundaries and barriers and whatnot. You don't want to lock like what is this? Now I'm getting very political, but it's like even to the extent to which collectivist sentiment is encouraged, you don't really believe in it because you don't have the taste for what that entails. So, anyways, this was going in quite a direction, but it's like I don't know. I feel like the culture itself, for as anti-corporate as it is so clearly marked by the habits of consumer practices that it's really just a farce every time this stuff is criticized. It's not legitimate. Nobody really wants to dismantle capitalism as an example. I'm not a Marxist, but I'm just pointing this out because it's so salient. They just want cheaper consumer lifestyles. That's true. Everything's so shallow and vapid, and people aren't even. They're not culture today. It's like even the people who don't have power. What do they use their position for? Do they try to encourage greater liberality amongst those of a similar position, as I've suggested before? No, they encourage more restriction. They want to restrict things. They want things to be more controlled. This is ridiculous. It's like the public itself has become as tyrannical as any theoretical dictator. Um, and that's why you can't trust anybody, and they don't even know how to have a real conversation about anything. Because it takes, a culture has to habituate you into mature thought processes that are, I'd say, a complement to civilization and not starkly at odds with civilization. And we don't have that. We don't have that encouraged. Parents don't encourage that among children. The school system doesn't encourage that. It fails. All the media habits devastate that propensity for creating like real living human beings. And it's, I don't know, we're screwed.